We are raised on the promise that success is a direct result of hours logged. We are told to wake up at 5 a.m., stay late, and outwork the person next to us. But in 2026, that equation is failing. In the mid-20th century, human effort was a physical bottleneck. If you worked 40 hours, you produced a set amount of value. If you worked 80, you doubled it. The output was linear because the limiting factor was the time a human could spend on a task. Today, that bottleneck has vanished. There are 8 billion people on the planet capable of effort, and AI can now replicate the cognitive output of a high-level analyst in seconds. Effort is no longer a competitive advantage. It is a commodity that can be automated for pennies. This graph illustrates the new economic reality. The flat line is linear effort, capped by your time, but the curve spiking upward represents judgment. With infinite leverage, one correct contrarian decision produces 10,000 times the value of a decade of hard work. When effort is automated, its market value drops to zero. This shift means that outsized rewards now flow towards those who can identify high-leverage pivots where the crowd sees only risk. We can see this mechanic in action starting in the year 2000. Amazon stock had plummeted 94% following the dot-com crash. Analysts were calling the company Amazon.bomb, and the business was hemorrhaging cash. The standard response to a crash is to cut costs and focus on the core business, selling books. But Jeff Bezos did the opposite. He diverted his remaining resources to force his engineers to rebuild the company's internal digital infrastructure from the ground up. Bezos issued a mandate. Every internal system had to be rebuilt as a standalone service, accessible via a clean interface. His engineers were frustrated by the extra work, but Bezos saw a deeper truth. He realized that the difficulty Amazon had with scaling its servers was a universal problem that every other internet company would eventually face. In 2006, they launched Amazon Web Services. Suddenly, any startup could rent Amazon's massive infrastructure with just a credit card. It allowed an entire generation of companies, from Netflix to Airbnb, to launch without buying a single server. This chart shows the early returns of that judgment. AWS grew from zero in 2006 to nearly $8 billion by 2015. Today, AWS generates over $90 billion a year. One decision made in a moment of crisis is now worth more than the entire retail empire that Amazon is known for. Bezos didn't outwork his competitors. He outthought them. He realized that the solution to his own internal operational nightmare was actually the most valuable product he could sell to the rest of the world. Identifying that leverage requires the courage to ignore current success. By 2007, Netflix was the undisputed leader in DVD rentals, pulling in $1.2 billion a year after defeating Blockbuster. Despite that dominance, Reed Hastings decided to pivot the company towards streaming movies online. To his board and his investors, this looked like the intentional destruction of a profitable business. Hastings was using first principles to look past the DVD. Instead of asking how to ship plastic discs faster, he asked how to move data to a screen with the least amount of friction. He looked at the cost curves of the time. The price of moving bits over the internet was dropping by double digits every year, while the cost of manufacturing and mailing physical discs remained fixed. As global bandwidth increased, digital distribution became a logistical inevitability. The most effective defense for a successful business is the willingness to disrupt your own primary revenue stream. Hastings knew that if he didn't kill the DVD business himself, the internet would eventually do it for him. This same logic is defining the current race for artificial intelligence. Most companies are locked in a hyper-competitive battle to build the most sophisticated algorithm or the most popular chatbot. But Alexandr Wang, the founder of Scale AI, ignored the noise of the algorithm race. Coming from a background in physics, he focused on the one fundamental requirement that every AI model shares. He realized that an AI system is only as capable as the data it is trained on. While others optimized code, Wang built the infrastructure to provide high-quality, accurately labeled training data. He turned the data layer into the foundational resource of the entire AI economy. Now, Wang is pivoting again into synthetic data, AI systems that generate their own training material. Even though this threatens his current human labeling business, he is moving to own the next bottleneck before his competitors even realize it exists. Sustainable monopoly power isn't found by following consumer trends. It is built by controlling the invisible infrastructure that every other competitor in the market relies on to exist. Bezos, Hastings, and Wang all share the same strand of DNA. They won not by outworking their peers, but by correctly identifying the moment when the underlying physics of their industry shifted. This process involves isolating the fundamental truths of your field by repeatedly asking why until you reach a fact that cannot be moved. From there, you search for the foundational layer, the thing everyone else needs but no one else wants to build. Stop measuring your progress by the hours you grind on automated tasks. In the new economy, your value is determined by your perspective. The world no longer pays for effort. It pays exclusively for the courage to act on a correct judgment when the consensus believes you are wrong. The world doesn't pay you for your effort. It doesn't pay you for your time. Working harder within an existing system is a commodity. The real premium, the leverage that creates extraordinary wealth, comes from the judgment to abandon a working model and build the infrastructure for the next one. Right now, in 2026, we are standing at an economic inflection point. The artificial intelligence expansion is creating structural openings on the exact same scale as the early internet in 1995, or the shift to mobile in 2007. The foundational layers of the next 2 decades are being poured today. To see how to capture that leverage, we have to look at 3 of the most profitable business pivots in modern history. Jeff Bezos, Reed Hastings, and Alexandr Wang operated in completely different eras and markets, yet the architectural DNA of their decisions is identical. None of these 3 men built their massive fortunes by simply grinding away at their original business plans. They captured generational leverage by having the clarity to stop, look at the underlying plumbing of their industries, and build what the system was going to need next. The first step in finding this leverage is the infrastructure audit. Look at the internal systems, processes, and proprietary tools you've built to support your current operations, like the vintage hardware shown here. Then ask a brutal question. Would anyone pay for this if we offered it externally? Jeff Bezos asked this exact question about Amazon's internal server capacity during the dot-com crash. While analysts insisted he should stick to selling books and ridiculed the idea of an e-commerce site renting out compute power, he looked at what Amazon had quietly solved for itself. By auditing their own backend, Amazon identified the infrastructure layer the entire internet was going to require. They cannibalized their own resources to offer it externally, creating AWS. Once you understand your internal value, you move to the sunset calculation. You look at your highest performing revenue stream and identify the exact date it will become obsolete. Not if it will happen, when. Reed Hastings ran the most successful DVD rental company on earth, but he knew physical media had a definitive expiration date. He initiated the pivot to streaming in 2007. Netflix's DVD revenue wouldn't actually peak until 2012. He gave himself 5 years of lead time to build the replacement. That meant enduring a painful middle period. The existing, highly profitable physical disc business had to fund the very streaming infrastructure that was designed to destroy it. Surviving a technological transition demands you identify the end of your own runway. You have to willingly kill your cash cow before a competitor does it for you. The final and hardest step is the first principles descent. You have to abandon the accepted knowledge of your industry. Pick the single most important question that determines who wins, and strip away assumptions until you hit absolute zero. When Alexandr Wang left MIT as a 19-year-old dropout, the entire AI industry was pouring its resources into algorithm development. Algorithms were the conventional answer to building better AI. Wang ignored that consensus. This chart illustrates his logical descent. He started by asking how to build better AI. The answer was better algorithms. Why better algorithms? Because they need better training. Why better training? Because they need better data. And why better data? Because it requires highly accurate labeling. He hit a physical truth that could not be argued with. Data quality is the ultimate ceiling of any AI capability. From that specific foundational layer, he built a $13.8 billion company. Holding an unpopular position under immense pressure from the rest of the market looks like bravery to outsiders. But when you have walked down that chain of logic yourself, it isn't about bravery at all. It is about absolute, undeniable clarity. That exact same clarity is required today. The current AI expansion offers infrastructure opportunities on par with laying the physical cables for broadband internet or launching the first mobile app stores. The high-leverage plays in 2026 are not in building another consumer chatbot. They are in the unseen plumbing. Every enterprise deploying AI is struggling with reliable data pipelines, rigorous quality control systems, and generating domain-specific synthetic training sets. We are also seeing massive open territories in governance frameworks for regulated industries like healthcare and finance, and in solving the complex data requirements for AI that operates in the physical world, like robotics and smart manufacturing. Capturing these domains cannot be done by optimizing your sales funnels or trimming operational costs. It requires treating intense research and development as your primary competitive strategy, investing heavily while the rest of the market tries to play it safe. You gain true leverage by identifying what the next system will inevitably require and building that infrastructure long before mainstream adoption actually demands it. The barrier to doing this is always the same. It is conventional wisdom. The consensus told Amazon to sell books, Netflix to ship discs, and scale AI to stick to basic data labeling. Conventional wisdom is derived entirely from past data, making it universally wrong at the frontier of change. This is your permission to trust what your own rigorous analysis is telling you, even when nobody else seems to see it. If your first principles logic points toward a terrifying pivot, you have to follow it over the safety of the accepted path. In 1994, 2007, and 2016, 3 individuals recognized what the underlying technology of their eras dictated. They didn't win by outworking their competitors on a granular level. They won because they thought deeper, saw further, and acted earlier. The market does not reward compliance. Extraordinary financial return is the exact compensation you receive for having the courage to be right when the entire consensus believes you are wrong. The foundational layer of tomorrow's economy is being built right now. So the only question that matters is, what do you see in your industry that nobody else is seeing?